Whether you're a video game maker and you want to know how to play video in your video game, or maybe you want to know how to trigger a video to come on at a particular time. Maybe you're a filmmaker and working on cinematics in the sequencer and you want to have some video playing, then this tutorial's for you. We are starting with the old third-person game template. Let's, in the content folder here, make a folder. You don't have to do this, but I'm going to show why it's not a bad idea. There are times you do have to do this, so we'll talk about the difference in a minute. We're going to make a new folder here, and we're going to call it Movies. Okay, go into that folder. So first we're going to add, right-click, Media, File Media Source. What this node does is allows you to point to the media that you want to import. So I'm going to double-click and open this, and you just need to fill in this field here with the path to the video that you want. So I'm going to go find my video real quick. Alright, so I got this video source right here. And save that. That's all this does. Now notice there's a little caution sign here. It says the selected media file will not get packaged because its path points to a file outside of the project's content movies directory. So just note that for now. Right now it's not important, but we'll talk about it in a bit. Save that and close that. So that's all this node is doing, is pointing to your video source. Next, we want to right click, go to media, and grab a media player. This is your little playback tool. So open that up. You want to check this box because we need the media texture to put onto the surface of the television or whatever screen you're using. And say OK. You'll see this pop up after we name our media player. And I'm just going to call this MP for media player. Call it whatever you want, but notice as soon as I did that, it made another little node here. This is our media texture. So note the type of asset it is listed there. And that I'll just leave the name MP video because I know it goes with the MP. In the Place Actors tab, you're going to go to your shapes, and I'm just going to grab a plane to use as a screen here. And I'm not even going to mess too much with placing it anywhere because I just want to get this working, and then we can make it all customized where it goes and such. So this plane needs a material. Now we could make a material and hook the texture up to it, but there's a little trick you could do here. This media texture node, if you drag that onto the plane, it will create a material for you. So if I double click this new node that just popped up, it'll create a new material with the texture already dropped down and connected to the base color. If you are putting this on a TV, you might want to also drop in a connection to the emissive color. Then if you really want to get nuts, you might want to hit M and click to put down a multiply node, just so you have a little control over the emission, right? So then plug this in here and then hold 1 and click to get a multiply input here that you can adjust. Now you're not getting any emission now by default because it's 0, so I'll set it to 1 so it at least has the standard amount that would exist if you just ran it right into emission. So it just gives you a little hook here. If you needed it to go out to a material instance and such, you could right click, convert it to a parameter. Then when you make a material instance, this could be your emission mult or something like that. Getting a little off topic. Well, actually it is on topic, but I'm getting a little more intermediate than need be at the moment. But this is a good little trick for you to know about anyway. Let's save this material and close that. So this is our screen and this is our player. If I hit play, not much is happening, right? So what we need to do is jump back here. All right, so let's look at a few things here. If we open up our movie player, and here is the link to our source media. So here's the path to the MP4 file, which exists on disk, not in the project. We'll talk about that again in a bit. If I double click, you hear something happen, but you're probably all really curious what is going on. We can't see anything. So I'm going to pause it up here. So the defaults when you bring in an MP4 in 5.03 at the moment is you're not going to see video if it's an MP4. So what you need to do is add a couple plugins, actually 4 plugins. You want to go to plugins and you want to type Electra. So you want to get the Electra player. Maybe just one of these is good enough, but I'm just going to click all 4 while I'm here. and restart and save what I've done so far. And the restart is done, so I'm going to close my plugins and reopen my media player. This time when I click on my media source, you're going to hear some media, and this is the video clip that I'm using. Video clip courtesy my son Dexter and his stop motion animation. If you are playing videos and you want it to loop, you can click the loop button here. Let's stop playing that, that's plenty, but we know it's working and we have some audio with this video clip. So that's great, so far so good. Let's just save what we've done here. When you add more media, you'll see those listed here as well. So this is kind of like, you could think of it like a QuickTime player, but it's a media player embedded inside Unreal. So I'm going to close this. And oh, actually what I do want to test now, let's take a look over here. Now we see a black screen over here. I haven't yet, this is a brand new project, I haven't yet changed my middle mouse setting, which, anybody have any contacts at Epic that can tell them, can we make this the default? Anyway, alright, so there we go. Now it's going where I want it to go. So here's our screen. If I hit play, you won't see anything playing again. So I hit stop. And let's take a look back at the media player. If I move this out of the way and play it back again and turn it down, you'll see it plays back on the screen. Right, so it's working, but as soon as I pause this, as soon as I close this, that goes away, which isn't ideal, but at least we can confirm that it's up and running. Also, this is 90 degrees off, and I need to open it up just a little bit there for widescreen purposes. But it is a working system, but we need a way to have it play when we hit the play button. So we'll go over a few different things related to that. The first is just to put in the level blueprint a trigger to play the media for you. So I'm going to go over here, go to the level blueprint. What we want to have happen is when we hit the play button, we want action to happen. So hit tab and type event begin. If you haven't done blueprints much, don't be scared, it's not that bad. Hit event begin play to get an event begin play node. So hit tab and then type that out. Next we need to create a variable that is kind of the pointer to our media player. So go over here to variables and add a new variable, and you can call it MP pointer. I'm just going to name it something semi-bluntly, right? And it's not a Boolean. A Boolean's a yes or no. It's actually a media player reference. So you want to go down to object types, and you could just scroll all the way down to media, or you could type media here, PLA, and then you see media player, and you want to grab an object reference. So this is referencing an existing media player when we point to it. So once you change your type, you'll see over here it says please compile the blueprint. So hit compile, do as it says, then come back over here and you're going to fill in the name of your media player here. Might seem a little convoluted, but you got to do it. Alright, so now this gets fired when we hit the play button. We want something to happen to this object that the media player pointer is pointing to. So drag that in and we're going to get it. So get a reference to the media player, and we want it to open a file. So pull a little string off the MP pointer variable here and type open, and you'll see there's an option for open source, and you get this node that you can then kick by pulling that in here. So when you hit the play button, this fires and it goes down and hits this node, and it says open source, and it says open the source of this object here, and you have to tell it what source do you want opened. So go down here, your new file media source. I didn't name this very well, but if I hover here you'll see it's your new car clip MP4. So this is the pointer to your video file, and that's pretty much it for this basic setup. Hit compile, save, close, then when you hit play, your media is going to start playing. we could make our screen a little bit bigger, you know, like why not? It's no expense spared in this video game demo. Alright, so here's my character running around. Each time I hit play, it's going to start at the beginning, and there goes my video. Now you'll see there's nothing on the other side. That's just a material property that we can fix really quick if you want. Go to your material and just tell it down here that you want it to be two-sided. Save, close, and then you'll see it on both sides of the video wall, the projection screen, whatever you're making. So there it is on both sides now. So that's one case where if you're hitting play and you don't really care what's on the screen, maybe it's just some ambient action of some kind and you just want it playing, and you just want it playing from the beginning and looping forever while you're playing these games. It's just a passive video on a wall, nothing that important. Then you could say you're done, and anytime you're playing the game, this is always going to run. Now, one thing I do want to talk about, because I said I was going to, is let me jump out of here for a second. Remember when I said if I went to the new file media source, and this is where I put the path to my movie file. Notice it's not in my project at all. It's just on a totally different hard drive from the project. This warning here is saying if you're packaging this, so if you're making a VR game or you're shipping a game and not just playing it on your computer, it will not take the video file with it because it can't reach outside of the project. So if you do need the video to go with the project, you need to put the video physically in that movies folder, not import it into the game. So let's close this. You're not dragging the file into here, because what that would do is that'll just trigger another new file media source. It'll just make another pointer. So technically true, I did not need to right click, go to media and file media source to start this all off. I could have just dragged my MP4 file into this field and it would have made this file for me. However, that's not making a U asset or things that you're used to. It's really just doing what I've done so far. If I double click, the video is still going to be in this path. It's not getting copied anywhere. So if you do need to package your game, you need to make a copy of your movie file here in the movies folder, and that's a file transfer thing, meaning you need to go to your file browser, go to your wherever you keep your so here's a copy of it. I'm going to do that actually. Let me right click, make a copy of this movie file. I'm going to go up and navigate to my projects. This one's called Play Media and Content and Movies. Notice all the things that are in there currently are U assets, but the actual MP4 file needs to be placed here if you need to ship it or package it. If you're not, if you're just playing it on your machine, maybe you're making your own short and you're only going to be staying on your own machine, you don't need to do this part. But now that I have done that, if I close this and go back to my pointer, you'll see it still has the warning. Why is that? Because this path is still pointing to the original location. If I go ahead and navigate that into the movies folder where I made a copy, then all will be well and that little warning will go away. Again, you don't have to do that, but it is good to know. That is why you often see the naming convention of this movies folder and everybody working inside the movies folder. So not necessary, but it's not bad practice either. One thing you may have noticed, even though I hooked up my video that does have audio and it plays in the media player, when I have it here in play mode, in the gameplay, we're not getting any audio. So what you need to do to fix this in this situation, where I just have the texture applied to the plane, is select the plane, go to the plane here in the details and add a sound. Just type in sound, and you want to grab a media sound component and just point that to your media player. And then now when you play, you'll have audio coming along as well. So let's go a step further. What if we want the media not to be playing from the beginning, but we want our character to be running around and maybe step in a trigger, or maybe even hit a hotkey? Maybe you hit the T key and it starts playing the TV. So how do we set that up? That's going to make a little bit more fun here. So for that, we can also put it in the level blueprint. And in the level blueprint, rather than event begin play opening the source, we're going to have a key trigger the source. So let's come down here, hit tab, and type T keyboard, and let's say, where's the T button? There it is. So this is your T key getting pressed. But before we do that, we have to enable input on the keyboard. So let's hit the tab key and get an enable input function. All right, so we're going to go from here to here. This, when we hit begin play, this says go ahead and enable input of your player controller. So pull back off of that and say promote to variable. And now this represents your actual player controller. In my case, it's keyboard. Just a quick interruption after making this video and figuring, you know what, I should test this enable keyboard and see if you really need to add this part. It turns out you don't. The T key is going to work just fine. You don't need to add this little step for enabling keyboard input, but I'll leave it there just because maybe you do in a future case and it's good to see how to do it. But for this exact case, you do not need the enable keyboard. Just throw the T key down. If I press the T key, that is now triggering the playback of the media. So compile that, save that, close that, come back out here to test it, hit the play button. So right now it's kind of, we'll go over how to erase that and make it start with nothing. So nothing's happening on the screen until I hit T on the keyboard, and that starts the short film. So that's triggering a playback of the media. So you can do that with, trigger volumes, keys that you press on the keyboard, whatever you want to do to do that. Okay, so now it's just going to keep looping when I hit T to start it. If I do hit T again, it's going to start over again. So each time I hit T, it's going to replay the video. Let's look at the idea of what if I don't want it just kind of locked on the screen here. If I go into the media texture, which was this node here, the MP video, should probably rename that MP texture technically, but whatever. Double click and open it. You'll see that you can check this box, auto clear. That clears the texture when you're done playing it. And you can pick a particular color. Let's be bluntly obvious and pick maybe green. And save, close. So the movie is not loaded, but there is a different texture on there when it's not playing. So hit the play button, run around for a minute, and then decide I'm going to turn on the TV. So hit T, and then the media starts playing. Now this isn't necessarily a blueprints class, but just in case you're wondering, what if I want to stop the media? Let's go back into the level blueprint. And there is a node called the FlipFlop. So if you hit tab, type FlipFlop, what this does is the first time you press the T key, it's going to fire off A. The second time you press the T key, it's going to fire off B. So what do I want to have happen when I hit the button again? Let's pull off the media. Since it's, if you pull off of a particular type of variable, which this is a media player, when you hit the tab key, it's going to show context sensitive. It's going to show nodes that like to play well with that. So I'm going to hit tab and I'll say pause and grab a pause function. And I don't have to tell it what media because it's already playing. So I'm going to run the B input into pause. So that will pause it. And then the next time I press T, it's going to hit A and it's going to go back and start the video again. All right, so let's test that. Compile, save, close, hit play, back up a bit, get ready for the big reveal and hit T. And then, oh no, hit T again and it pauses. All right, so that's working. And there's a lot of, you can explore that and find different functions. You can stop, start, play, pause, replay, and such. So this works fine for game mode, but let's say we want to do something that is sequence based, right? So we want to see what happens when we start doing level sequences. A lot of you are, animators, VFX folks, and making movies. So this is not a mode you're usually in. You're not usually hitting the play key and running around. You might be into games. I got some game watchers now, but a lot of us are into the cinematics. So Let's then go to the content folder, do what we always do, make a new folder, call it cinematics, just some of these standard naming conventions. Hop in here. We're going to right click, animation, make a new level sequence. Let's call this shot 1. I have a more complete video talking about cinematics, the old make a short film in 60 minutes video if this is all a little foreign to you. But the quick version here to get to the good stuff for the media playback, if you double click, open up your level sequence, let's just make a quick spawn camera hitting this button for our shot. And let's back up a little bit, place it not through the wall, but maybe let's just push this back and have a little more space. And we hit play and you'll see, nothing's happening, but that's okay. We want to make changes in our level blueprint because before we had it running where we hit the T key and all that. We want this just to be running all the time. So in this case, switch over to your level blueprint and you're going to say, wait, I thought we're not playing back. I thought we were, just kind of making sequences. Well, actually, if you run your event begin play into your open file, you're really setting it up to what we had before. Alt click this line to get rid of it. All right, so now we have just what we had before, clearing a little space here. We have event begin play triggering the movie playback. Compile, save. Oh, didn't like that I disconnected that, so just delete that. Compile, save, and close. When I hit play on the sequencer, you're not going to see anything. When I hit the render button, and let's output an AVI, save selected, you're actually going to see the video playing back on the wall. What's happening is when you're rendering out, it's the same as when you're in simulate and you see this action that's going. That's what's going to happen when you output your render. So even though you don't see anything now when you're playing back in the editor, again, when you hit render and output, your movie's going to start playing. Now, here's the next question I know you're going to ask. How do you manage the timing of your movie playback? So this is the grand finale of our little video here. You can control your movie playback using the sequencer with some event triggers and also kind of a standalone blueprint. So let's go set up the blueprint first. So back to the content browser. Let's maybe, just for good practice, make a new folder for blueprints. Go into that new folder, right click and make a new blueprint. And you can make it an actor class. And we'll call it the MP, well actually we should call it the BP for blueprint underscore MP for the media player. And double click to open that. And we're just looking at the event graph for this. And we actually need to create not an event begin play trigger because we don't want it to play at the beginning, and we're not really looking at ticks or overlapping a zone. We kind of need to make our own custom little event trigger here. So hit the tab key and type custom, and we're adding a custom event. Alright, so the custom event, let's give it a name. We'll call it start movie. And this isn't actually starting the movie, it's just the kick. It's the signal, the trigger is going to fire off here. And we can use the same nodes that we used from the level blueprint. I don't need these, let's delete these. And what we want to do is really the same thing again. Let's create our variable for the player. We'll call it MP var for our MP variable. And same thing, we need to make it a, let's go for a quick search here. Media player, and grab an object reference. And throw that into your scene and get it. And remember here, please compile the blueprint, compile. And point to your media player. Next, same thing really, is we need to open the movie. So drag off of here, type open to open the source video file, navigate to that source video. And let's say when the start movie is fired, it's going to open the media on our media player. So that's all we have to do for the moment. We might come in here and put some more tricky stuff later, but for the moment, that's good. Compile and save and close. All right, so we're making progress. Let's go to our sequencer. What you need to do to fire a signal to get to that blueprint to turn on that little custom function we made, or the custom event, you need to pull that blueprint in here into your sequencer. So I'm going to go to my content browser, drag it to the sequencer tab, let it update, and then drag it down in here. All right, so now I have a reference in my sequencer so I can do something to that blueprint. Let's go and decide what frame we want the TV to start running. So maybe I'll start on frame 45 is where the TV is going to turn on. So what you do is you go to your blueprint that's in the sequencer and you add a track, and you want to add an event track, and you want a trigger event. So you open that up and you'll see it added an event track. Next, what you want to do is set a key at that frame where you want something to happen. So hit the add a key button. Then you're going to right click on that keyframe, go to properties, go to your event that you're triggering, go to quick bind, and because that blueprint that you're referencing right now in your sequencer, it knows about it. So if you go into blueprint for the movie player C, go into class, BPMP, start movie. So what you're doing is you're navigating through the intricacies of the blueprint and finding your way. Remember, this is what we called our custom function. We called it start movie. So you're connecting that keyframe to this function that you created. So select that, and it takes you into, you may not know this exists, the sequencer. In the same way that the level has level blueprints, the sequencer has its own set of blueprints, and you'll see here it says sequencer events. So it's called the director blueprint. So this is your sequencer's blueprint. The same way the level has a blueprint, you have a sequence blueprint called the director blueprint for shot one. So what this just did, this represents the keyframe event that we just triggered on the timeline, and it's connecting it to this function that also exists in our blueprint called start movie. This is really all you need to do. It's all hooked up, but you do need to go to this node and click this box, call in editor. Okay, compile, save, and close this. Again, that was the blueprint for your level sequence. So what this means is back it up to the beginning, hit play, and the movie gets triggered as soon as you hit wherever that keyframe is. Now there's nothing necessarily stopping it, but if you are rendering your shot, right, if you go out here to render and capture your movie, you'll see a little bit of a mistake there. See how there was a little hiccup? The movie was already playing before it hit frame 45. So what's going on? This is why I like to leave mistakes in my videos, because you'll learn from them as well. What happened is, if you go into the level blueprint, remember that when you render, whatever is running from event begin play is also going to get triggered. So we need to come into the level blueprint and disconnect the kicking of this at the beginning of the sequence. So compile, save, and close. So let's test that again. We're going to go render it out. This time, because we disconnected the level blueprint, it's not going to start at the beginning, but only when it hits our trigger point. So capture movie. Sure, I'll save whatever I changed. And there's my cinematics, and there it kicks into the video playing. and it's just going to run until the end of the sequence. Cool. So what else can we do? Let's set another trigger to stop the video, and then from there you can interpolate and do whatever other kind of work you want, but let's just make sure we know how to do that. First, we need to go into our blueprint and set up a stop event. So go back to your blueprint folder, go into your blueprint that you made just for managing the player. So we have a custom event that when it gets kicked is opening the video. Let's make another custom event. So hit tab, type custom, grab and add custom event node. Let's call this, change it up here. Let's change it pause video. And let's create another call to this. Pull off of there, type pause, and grab a pause function. And when the pause video custom event is kicked, it's going to, or triggered, it's going to activate and pause your video. So let's compile and save that part. So that's the blueprint by itself. Then let's go back to our sequencer, set another keyframe. So I'm setting a keyframe here, right click, properties, and go looking for a quick bind into your, again, blueprint, class, blueprint MP, and pause video. So it's reaching down in your blueprint to find this. And then it pops up your level sequences set of blueprints. And now we have this event that's coming. Remember, this is our trigger, and it is now connected to our pause video custom event, which is going into our blueprint that we just closed a minute ago to actually pause the video. So it's a couple little hop and skips to get there. Don't forget here, you need to click this call-in editor, otherwise it won't work for the way we're using it. Okay, so now compile, save, close, and let's go back here, hit play, it starts and it pauses. It's not the old guy just kind of stopping his walker. It's actually just starting, stopping. And if you wanted it to close, when you got to the end, you could set another keyframe, same thing, right click, properties, unbound, so we're going to bind it to something that doesn't exist yet. So we could set half of it up and then come back and hook it up. Let's go over here first. Let's go back to the blueprint. Let's see if we have a close source. We'll grab the close function. And we'll create another custom event. Hit tab, type custom. We'll call that close media. Okay, so this, when triggered, pauses the media. This, when triggered, closes the media. And let's compile, save, close this blueprint, and go back to our level sequence. Go back to this keyframe. Properties, unbound, so let's bind it to a new quick bind of our blueprint for the media player. Go to the class section, another folder, there's close media. And it's taking you inside your blueprint, and it's showing you that this one here is going to close the media. If you want, you can rename these as your triggers, but I'll just let you do that if you want. Okay, so now compile, save, close. Start at the beginning, hit play, starts, pauses, and closes. Oh, it didn't close. Does anyone know why? It's the thing I told you have to do, but I didn't do it myself. You can get into your blueprint by clicking on this icon here. If you go here to your trigger event. I did not check the box. Call in editor. I just told you guys to do it and I didn't do it myself. So check that box, compile, save, close. Back to the beginning, hit play. Starts, stops, or pauses and closes. So now what about audio for our cinematics? If I hit play, you realize, hey, there's no audio with this. True. Now here's where I hit a little bit of a roadblock, which I think is going to be okay because you're likely going to be bringing your output into Premiere or something else and play your audio through that. But let's get close to working, and there's still one little thing that's not working and I'm not sure why. If anybody knows, feel free to let me know. But if I run into the blueprint, and you have to add this media sound here into your blueprint as well. Now, again, this isn't fully working, but I think I'm close. So again, either it's not possible with the setup that there is, and there's some little bug, or I just don't know how to do something. So I'm going to bring in my media sound here, and to attach it, so I'm going to pull this out here and set a media player for this sound source so it knows what media it should go with, and I only have this one here, so I'm going to run with that. So when I hit the play movie button, make sure that's associated, then play the movie source, and it seems to work almost. So let me show you what I mean. So hit save, come back here, start over, hit play. Now you don't hear anything here in the editor. However, if I go to render, and here's another reason I don't think you're really going to need this. Generally, you're not going to be outputting AVIs if you're doing cinematics. You're probably going to be using the movie render queue anyway. But let's just continue this topic. There is this master audio submix option. If you select that, then when you capture the movie, listen closely. There's our audio. It pauses. Remember, the video pauses. So here it seems to be working. You get this weird little glitch at the end there. Okay, so if I go to my capture folder and I look at this particular movie, just double clicking to launch it, here I don't get any audio. And if I look at the properties for the AVI, I'll show you that as well, and I go to the details, there isn't any information about audio. So I don't know if the render of the AVI with that experimental sound output isn't working. I mean, I can hear audio playing, I just don't know why it's not ending up in here. Now again, for me personally, I wouldn't be adding the audio into my movie here. I'd be editing later, so it's not an issue for me. If you really for some reason need the audio built into the AVI and somebody can figure out how that works, put the notes down in the comment and I'll bring it up to the what do you call that, the top of the comment list. I'll pin it so other people can see what the solution is after I verify it really works. But again, for me it's not an issue. And another note, if we go to the content browser and look in our movies folder, you'll see that we brought in this asset here, file media source. When we did a right click in the beginning and went to media, we grabbed file media source. This is good for bringing in video files, but if you have actual frames that you want to bring in, now of course there won't be any audio associated with that, you would use this option here, image media source, and almost the same, I'll just call it frames, and double click to open that. And here you're doing the same thing, you're pointing to where all the frames exist. I had put mine here in this frames folder just to show you. I had pulled these all out in Premiere. Just grab the first frame, open that. Now this is pointing to all of those frames. You get the same error message if you didn't pull these all into the movie file, then you're not going to get them for packaging, but I'm not needing that at the moment. Save that, hop back over to here. Now when you go to your media player, I have two options here. I have my original media source, right, and that was the video file, and then I can go to the frames folder and that's going to load the frames instead of the video file. So that's just showing you can use frames or a video source for your media player. Hopefully you've learned enough to be able to do some fun stuff with the media player. And just as a little side note, in 5.1 that just came out, there's a couple little changes as well. This is still here, but there's another asset, but we'll deal with that another time. And if you'd like to view the whole version of that LEGO stop motion short, just click right here.